Hello again. This is the third and last part of the video about TAL's openings. In this video I will show some examples from TAL's games which had influence on the opening theory. I will start with a game from 1973, Spassky with the white pieces. Spassky just lost his World Championship title, was still, of course, very strong, and he had white pieces against Tal. Spassky played here one of his favorite variations against him, the Indian, the Leningrad variation. The 10th world champion achieved many nice victories here, but Tal had something very concrete in mind, which actually refuted one of the lines in this variation. Here, black played b5. This was played before, so Spassky had played already this position before. The most solid move here is e3, but Spassky's intention is here to accept the pawn sacrifice. D takes e6, f takes e6, now takes on d5, d5. We see that this reminds of Blumenfeld gambit, but there the black bishop is on f8, white bishop is on c1. Here the diagonal a5 u1 will play a role, as we'll see. e3 was played, castle short. Now Spassky played knight f3. Spassky already had this position before, and against him black played knight bd7 before. White consolidated with bishop d3, and Spassky won that game. The point is that, okay, e5 doesn't bring much black because of bishop f5. The position remains complicated, but white's chances are better. Tal had a very good feeling for initiative and made a strong novelty, which he prepared beforehand. Queen a5. Black's idea is to put pressure on c3, also preparing knight e4. The game continued. Bishop takes f6, rook takes f6, queen d2. Now white pieces control very well square d4, and it looks like white will be in time to castle short. Tal continued a6, another strong move. The idea is not to open, or not necessarily to open the files, but the main idea is to get square c6 for the knight in order to support the advance d4. Spassky took on a6, black plays knight c6. So this is exactly the type of position which suited very well to Tal, and black develops quickly the initiative here. Bishop e2 was played. Still, black has d4, e takes d4, and a nice exchange sacrifice. Rook takes f3 with the idea to take them on d4. Bishop takes f3, c takes d4, and all variations work here in black's favor. Tal won a great game. With a bishop pair in attack, I can show a few more moves. White castled. D takes c3, b takes c3, bishop takes c3, queen d6 was played in the game. Rook takes a6, bishop takes c6. Now, if black, for instance, attacks the queen from e5, then white has queen e7, and the bishop on c6 is indirectly protected because of queen e8. But black has here the move bishop b4, and the queen doesn't have a square to keep the bishop protected. Spassky played queen b8, rook takes c6, rook a c1, bishop c5, and black has here everything protected. It looks like white has an initiative, but in reality black defends here and remains with a very strong bishop pair, and bishop pair decided later the game in an attack against white's king. So this idea, queen a5, refuted entirely the move knight f3, the 10th move knight f3, and this disappeared, basically this disappeared from practice. The next example is against Karo Khan. We remember that Tal had big problems against his opening, against Caro-Kann, e4, c6. He had big problems in his match against Botvinnik in both matches, d5. In the first match, he played knight c3. In the second, he played with e5, but he couldn't achieve anything. So this is game from 77, from the tournament in Montreal. Here, Tal goes for main lines, bishop f5, knight g3, bishop g6. I remind you that in the first match against Botvinnik, Tal played here, tried always to play knight 1, e2. Now he goes for the main lines, h4, h6, h5, bishop h7, knight f3, knight d7. So these moves, bishop d3, the main moves, take e6, knight g6, sorry, bishop f4, queen a5 check, bishop d2, queen c7, castle long, e6. White played here knight e4, castle long, and g3. This plan with knight e4 followed by g3 was played in 1965 by Geller, and it shows that it's not so simple for black here to achieve full equality, and this game of Tal confirmed this once again, that it's not easy at all here with black to solve all the problems at once. Hübner tried to do this and failed. Knight takes c4, queen takes c4, knight f6, queen e2, c5. These days, black plays here bishop d6. It's not possible to simplify the position so quickly because of this game, Tal Hübner, which proved that black cannot so quickly exchange with pawns. Now a strong move, rook h4, and black already has concrete problems because the threat is b4 followed by rook c4, rook c4, and then b4. Hübner made a natural move, king b8, and ran into a very nice combination. Bishop f4, bishop d6, rook takes d6, rook takes d6. And okay, in this position, the question is how to continue, because white would like to place the knight on c4, but after knight d2, for instance, black can play knight d5 and force white to take on d6 because of the bishop e5, for instance, on f6, and black is doing fine. He equalizes. But now unexpected move made by Tal, knight e5, which actually shows that black's position is difficult. He loses a pawn, at least in all variations. The move is a bit unexpected because it closes temporarily, of course, it closes the diagonal h2 b8. But white creates here threat, not only knight c4, but also knight takes f7, and he achieves big advantage, as I said, in all variations in the game after king a8, knight c4, knight d8, another strong move, rook g4, and as I said, white wins at least a pawn everywhere. Tal won this game. Tal also refuted some lines with just over the board play because he had a very good feeling for the initiative, and especially when his opponents played some doubtful lines, he was able to refute it over the board. This is our next example. Tal Taimanov, e4, c5, knight f3, d6. So a rare variation of Sicilian, which was used already by Taimanov before knight c3, knight bd7, a very rare move. But after this game of Tal, it was clear that the variation is just bad for black. Tal makes the strongest move here, bishop c4, the most active move, and everywhere it's clear that the knight is too early closed the diagonal for the bishop. for the bishop on c8, and there are different sacrifices on e6. After queen c7, white doesn't even need to play bishop b3. He plays queen e2. He wants to develop as quickly as possible with castle short. a6 was played, bishop g5, b5, and now bishop d5. Already here, black probably had to sacrifice a pawn with bishop b7 when white can take on f6 and take on b5, and to search for some compensation for the pawn. But Taimanov played here knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen b7. It's clear that white has a large advantage in development. Castle long. Black tries also to develop e6, but of course Tal leaves the knight on d5, because taking the knight on d5 is very dangerous for black. White wins immediately with a piece back. f4, and white has a big initiative, knight c5, was continuing rook e1. Black has big problems here to finish the development. And after rook a7, Tal makes another move, another sacrifice, knight f5. Everywhere, if black accepts sacrifices, he's completely lost, he loses very quickly. So the pawn on e6 cannot take neither on d5 nor on f5. So white places the knight on very active squares. And after f6, which happened in the game, white simply took on f6, another sacrifice, knight takes f6, king d8, knight takes e6, and black's position is hopeless. White's attack is too strong. Tal won this game. Another example is against Larsen, 1965. In the candidate matches, Larsen played few times before the Alekhine defense, e4, knight f6, e5, knight d5. And in this game, I want to show you the sixth game of the match. In the fourth game, Larsen already played this against Tal, knight f3, d takes e5, knight takes e5, and in the fourth game, Larsen played knight d7, which shocked Tal because he immediately saw that white can sacrifice on f7 and give check queen h5, which forces black to play king e6. But somehow Tal knew that his opponent analyzed this, and he couldn't decide to go for this line, although his feeling told him that this should be enough compensation for white. But knowing that his opponent analyzed this position at home very well, he thought for a long time, and in the end he didn't take on f7. He played bishop c4 in this position, which is also possible. But he was so disappointed that he didn't take on f7 even during the game, that after bishop c4 he quickly ended up in an horse position and was fighting for equality, for a draw the entire game, which he succeeded to do. But in the next game with white, he was already eager to sacrifice on f7, but Larsen didn't play knight d7 again. He played e6, which is also a doubtful move. From the point of view of modern theory, here black should play something like g6 or c6 first. e6 is a doubtful move. It closes a diagonal for the bishop on c8. White has an development advantage, and Tal also analyzed this position a little bit, and he came to the conclusion that queen f3 is the most active move, because Larsen played e6 also before in the previous candidate match against Divkov, and Tal came to the conclusion that queen f3 gives white some initiative, and this is what happened in this game. Queen f6, queen g3, now white threatens to develop bishop g5, so black must lose another tempo, and Tal again makes the strongest move, knight c3, exchanging the only well-developed piece, black's knight on d5. Larsen continued knight b4, bishop b5 check, c6, bishop a4, knight d7. And already here, Stahl explains himself, he was very eager to sacrifice something, and he calculated the line to play a3, knight d5, knight c6, because after b takes c6, bishop takes c6, white wins. But then he came to the conclusion, to the right conclusion, that after knight takes c3, followed by knight b6, black is doing fine. But he saw another idea of sacrifice, which happened in the game. A very nice sacrifice, which actually also refuted the whole concept of black in this opening line. Castle short, knight takes e5, d takes e5, queen g6, queen f3. Black cannot take on c2 here because of bishop takes e6. Actually, we see that also black is behind in development. Larsen played queen f5, trying to exchange queens. Larsen, of course, Tal doesn't want to exchange. Queen e2, bishop e7, and here Tal could play his idea of sacrificing the knight on b5. This was his idea, knight b5 here. This move points out the awkward position of the queen on f5, because, for instance, if black declines the sacrifice, then after knight d4, the queen has problems here. For instance, queen g6, white plays c4 and bishop c2. So in the game, black accepted the sacrifice instead of castle short. Larsen took on b5, but white has a very strong initiative after queen takes b5 and c4. The idea is that if black gets knight b6, white plays queen a5. Still, this was the strongest move. Larsen decided in the game to play queen takes e5 to give back the piece, but this led to a clear advantage for white after queen e2. Now white is just a pawn down, but king on d8 will be always exposed. White plays rook d1, and white has a very good compensation. Tal won this game also quite convincingly. We see that it was a very risky idea to play doubtful variations against Tal, because he had a very good feeling for the initiative and was able to refute such doubtful ideas over the board. Before finishing, I would like to resume that Tal's main concept in the openings was to fight for initiative. He could play virtually everything, especially in his late years. He became very flexible in this aspect. In 70s, he started to work with Karpov, and this also had an influence on his opening repertoire. That's why he also became much more flexible. He became also more solid. Generally, Tal was a genius, and he was a player of an inspiration, not of a hard work, and this was also his approach in the openings. Thank you.